built his dream car with the aid of financing from the British government. But the cars sat on lots and are best remembered for a starring role in a Hollywood movie. Join us as History International presents Great Blunders, the DeLorean car, on History Explorer.
The automobile has been a great commercial success of the 20th century. It's now part of everyday life in many parts of the world. Some cars have been so successful they've become icons, like the Model T Ford. Another example is the Volkswagen Beetle, developed in Nazi Germany before World War II. The purpose of both cars was to provide the driver with inexpensive, popular transportation. Both were mass-produced using well-conceived assembly lines. After World War II, the British resurrected Volkswagen, and the factory was returned to the Germans to help revitalize their economy. Within a few years, the Beetle became one of the best-selling cars of all time. The Beetle remained in production for 50 years and became a symbol of the 60s. It is still a cult car today. But some cars symbolize the failure of the automobile industry to identify its market. The Ford Edsel was aimed at executives of the 1950s. Its revolutionary styling was the car's main selling point, but potential buyers were unimpressed, especially after its launch in a major automobile recession. The project was an expensive blunder. The DeLorean car, like the Edsel, was revolutionary in appearance, launched in the midst of a recession, and a sales failure. But it was not its creator, John DeLorean, who blundered. It was the British government. It backed the project with some $120 million of public money without investigating the project's viability. The British government then made things worse by not supervising the DeLorean Motor Company properly. All the money invested was lost. John DeLorean was a highly regarded figure in the American automobile industry. He began his career as an engineer for Packard in the 1950s. By the early 1970s, he was vice president of General Motors' North American car and truck divisions. He was favored to become the next president of the company. Instead, DeLorean stunned the industry in 1973 when he resigned and set up his own automobile business. The business was to be built around a revolutionary automobile DeLorean called an ethical sports car. Made of rust-proof materials, including fiberglass and stainless steel, the DeLorean would have safety features not found in other cars. It would be able to withstand head-on, rear, and side collisions. Its novel gull-wing doors would gently open at the touch of a door handle. And its rear-mounted engine would be rated at 130 horsepower. John DeLorean was a very good publicist, but he needed money to bring his project to fruition. To obtain it, he came up with a revolutionary idea. He would approach national or local governments for financial support in return for creating jobs at his plant. DeLorean was prepared to manufacture his car anywhere in the world, be it South America, Africa, Europe, or Asia. He approached both Puerto Rico and the Republic of Ireland as possibilities. DeLorean also had interest from the city of Detroit, traditionally the heart of the American automobile industry. In June 1978, DeLorean made overtures to the British government, proposing a factory in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland had been in turmoil for the past decade. The IRA and other Republican terrorist groups tried to destabilize the government through bombings and shootings. Protestants retaliated in kind. It was clear to the British government that rising unemployment from bombed-out businesses was helping to foster discontent and increase violence. Against that backdrop, DeLorean's proposal appeared heaven-sent for the government. But he said he needed $85 million to set up production. By this time, DeLorean concluded labor relations in the Irish Republic might jeopardize the project. As for Puerto Rico, DeLorean was concerned about a possible language barrier and labor difficulties. Both Northern Ireland and Puerto Rico appeared to be ruled out. This left Detroit, where DeLorean had maintained close connections. He alerted the British to competitive interest in his car by Detroit auto executives. He said the British government would have to reach a quick decision on backing the project. Otherwise, the opportunity would be lost. Desperate to curb the destruction plaguing Northern Ireland, the British government agreed to fund the project. But daily violence in the province prompted a New York backer of the DeLorean Motor Company to pull out. This left an $18 million shortfall. Desperate to make the deal, the British government agreed to cover the difference for a total investment of $100 million. The British government had only days to close the deal. It was blinded by an urgent need to reduce unemployment and restore order in Northern Ireland. It was so eager that it cut corners in monitoring the DeLorean company. This would be a serious and costly blunder. A team sponsored by the British government flew to the United States to review the proposed DeLorean car. But while they investigated John DeLorean's company in New York, they did not request independent assessments of the DeLorean project from American financial institutions or automobile companies. A report commissioned by a British finance house warned that the venture was risky and that its success depended largely on the personality and expertise of John DeLorean. In spite of this warning, the British government signed a formal agreement at the end of July 1978. $100 million worth of British public funds were allocated for the project. In return, DeLorean guaranteed to employ a workforce of 2,000 within 5 years after the start of production. Northern Ireland's development agency would receive a royalty on each car sold. Northern Ireland Minister Roy Mason was delighted.
When I talk about the tide turning on industrial investment, I think this is one that proves it is, because it's the fourth in 5 months brand new American investors coming into Northern Ireland, and between them creating 3,500 jobs. But you see, this is a car assembly plant. It's a specialized product. It's the United States market it's going for. The company have got 400 outlets already. They've got private investment behind them. They've got 30,000 orders already for the car. And it's going into, for the first time, the new investment is going into an area of very high unemployment.
The green fields just outside West Belfast were selected as the site for the DeLorean plant, one of the most troubled areas in Northern Ireland. Construction work began in October 1978. John DeLorean made an agreement with Lotus Cars of Britain, which produced cars that looked roughly similar. Lotus would conduct the research and development work needed to bring this car to production. This was important to design an efficient assembly line. By the summer of 1979, the Northern Ireland Development Agency was concerned about the DeLorean Motor Company's lack of financial control over the project. As part of the original agreement, the development agency had directors on the board of DeLorean, but they had little influence. In August of 1980, DeLorean approached the British government and received an additional loan of $20 million for production to begin. Throughout these difficulties, John DeLorean remained confident he had a winner on his hands. He was not afraid to hold press conferences. The DeLorean Motor Company was on course, he insisted. A comprehensive distribution network was already in place in the U.S. Using his old General Motors contacts, these were mainly GMC dealers.
So the company is in significantly better financial shape than it was previously.
One tangible indicator of the company's potential was the construction of the Dunmurry plant where the cars were to be built. The main work was completed in just 16 months, a remarkable achievement. In February 1981, production of the DeLorean car finally began. Completed models were soon filling the plant's dispatch area. All the cars were shipped to the United States, the market they were originally designed to please. Sales to other countries would wait until the project was more advanced. The cars were delivered to the west coast of the United States, where most of John DeLorean's retail outlets were located. But it was soon clear the DeLorean was not really catching on in North America. Its $25,000 price tag compared unfavorably with similar models. The non-painted metallic finish, gull-wing doors, and other features were not as popular as expected. The car market was in a recession, especially sports cars. There was another problem. DeLorean rapidly expanded his workforce, which reached its target total of 2,000 employees just 6 months after production began. The staff did not have enough experience to adequately train new workers. This meant that the quality of the finished cars was often below standard. American retailers soon found themselves having to spend sizable sums of money to correct faults that should have been dealt with before the cars left Ireland. It did little for sales confidence in the car. There were also complaints about money spent by the American directors of the DeLorean Motor Company. John DeLorean enjoyed first-class air travel, often jetting back and forth across the Atlantic in the Concorde. Many commented on the fact that DeLorean maintained expensive properties in the United States, while the fortunes of his company declined. By the end of January 1982, the workforce at Dunmurry was over 2,600. This meant a large jump in labor costs. Just over 8,300 DeLorean cars had been produced, but fewer than half of the 7,400 shipped to America had been sold by retailers. The prospects of the revolutionary DeLorean car were beginning to look bleak. The creation of new jobs by John DeLorean and the government of Northern Ireland had not reduced violence there. In 1981, imprisoned IRA terrorists demanded to be treated as political prisoners and conducted prolonged hunger strikes. Supporters took to the streets. The British government refused to meet their demands. Some of those striking died. The deaths triggered riots. One of the properties damaged was John DeLorean's offices in Belfast. In January 1982, DeLorean used this incident to partially justify approaching the British government for more money. The government immediately commissioned one of London's leading accounting firms to analyze the finances of DeLorean's company. Within a few days, the answer came back recommending no more public money be invested in DeLorean. It was almost the end of the line. On February 19, 1982, the DeLorean Motor Company was placed in receivership. Production was reduced to one shift, and the workforce was almost cut by half. But even drastically reduced production exceeded sales. Frantic efforts to secure American refinancing also failed. By the end of May 1982, production of the DeLorean car had halted. The last shipments left for the United States. The rest of the workforce was dismissed. The machine tools that had been installed in the factory amid such high hopes were auctioned off. The British government, as the major shareholder, seized the body dies and had them destroyed. This ensured that no more DeLorean cars would ever be built. All that was left was the factory shell. And ghosts. Reactions from former DeLorean workers were mixed.
John DeLorean opened the DeMark and we worked for him. We would work for him. Because he was the only one left. He was the only one came here to give us a job. If we come back again tomorrow, we'd work for him.
If I were John DeLorean, sitting across the table from you, what would you say to me?
I don't know. I think I'd just punch you in the nose, you know?
The dreams of British politicians and the lives of employees in Northern Ireland and John DeLorean himself were shattered. What the British public now wanted to know was how 120 million of its tax dollars had been lost. The British parliamentary financial watchdog, the Committee of Public Accounts, investigated. Its report pulled no punches. The DeLorean project represented one of the gravest cases of the misuse of public resources to come before us for many years. It was a shocking misappropriation of money. The committee concluded that the government had blundered by being over-optimistic and ineffectively supervising the project as it proceeded. The damning report led to greater caution in backing foreign business schemes in troubled Northern Ireland. As for John DeLorean, he lost little personal money compared to what the British government invested in his car. There were some suspicions that he had used British public money to finance new companies. Criminal investigations were launched on both sides of the Atlantic. Undeterred by all this, John DeLorean tried to launch a new automobile project. But he could not obtain the financial backing to bring it to fruition. A number of the criminal investigations into his affairs landed DeLorean in court to face charges, including misappropriation of funds. In every case, the ruling was that he committed no crime or wrongdoing. His character remained unblemished. The FBI suspected DeLorean of investing laundered money in the narcotics trade. He became the target of a drug bust and was filmed during a supposed deal.
Hi, John. Hi. Very question with the FBI. You're under arrest for narcotics laws violation. Say that the Jose Armbar. He's with DEA. Can you stand up, please? Stand up. Okay. Turn around. Yeah.
Again, he was found not guilty. As for the DeLorean car, it did not vanish into obscurity. In 1985, director Robert Zemeckis released the film Back to the Future, starring a DeLorean car.